Greetings and blessings. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are in your experience or whatever your time zone may be. I am Halim Ali, and this is Mindfulness Tuesdays with From The Heart Enterprises. Before we get into our practice, I would like to read a piece of scripture for you. It says, "Peace is easily maintained. Trouble is easily overcome before it starts. The brittle is easily shattered. The small is easily scattered. Deal with it before it happens. Set things in order before there is confusion. A tree as great as a man's embrace springs from a small shoot. A terrace 9 stories high begins with a pile of earth. A journey of 1,000 miles starts under one's foot. He who acts defeats his own purpose. He who grasps loses. The sage does not act and so is never defeated. He does not grasp and therefore does not lose. People usually fail when they are on the verge of success. So give as much care to the end as to the beginning. Then there will be no failure. Therefore, the sage seeks freedom from desire. He does not collect precious things. He learns not to hold on to ideas. He brings men back to what they have lost. He helps the 10,000 things find their own nature, all the while refraining from action." So as we enter into our mindfulness this evening, which is part 2 of our 4-part series of the 4 stages of consciousness, tonight we will look at the 2nd stage of consciousness, the Manifestor Consciousness, the by me consciousness. And before we enter into our mindfulness, I would like to take a moment to connect with our breath, to free our minds of any intruding thoughts, of any oppressive thoughts, of all negative thoughts. Let's just take a moment to connect with our breath and to clear our minds. And let's take a couple of breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in that which is useful and letting go of that which is useless. Last week, we looked at the victim consciousness, the to me consciousness, that consciousness which suggests or creates something outside of ourselves, controlling our lives and our moods, and it is actually an illusion. With the victim consciousness comes malicious hypnotism. And this is that consciousness that is derived from too much media, too much news, too much worldly activities, malicious hypnotism. In this session, we are going to look at the second level of consciousness, and that is the by me consciousness. The by me consciousness, or the manifestor consciousness, where instead of simply allowing life to happen to you, you are now in a space where you are making life happen. You are not just merely going through the change, but you are beginning to consciously direct the change. We say mindfulness instead of meditation because what we are actually doing is recalibrating our entire nervous system, recalibrating our subtle bodies, recalibrating our emotional body, recalibrating our spiritual and mental bodies, so that we can actually hold our answered prayers in place. So we can actually hold the insights that are happening within each moment from the eternal broadcast of divine mind. We are gathered here in order to come into an understanding of what the victim stage looks like, coming into an understanding of the lies we tell ourselves and the lies that we have possibly been telling ourselves our whole lives. And then going through the forgiveness process, and then becoming one with the manifestor consciousness, and making yourself available to the moment, available to the universe, and breaking whatever chains or cumbersome shackles have bound you in the past, whether it's childhood trauma, abuse, a toxic work environment, toxic friendships, relationships, or toxic family members. You may not realize this, but as we journey through the manifestor consciousness, many people do not have the strength or fortitude to hold in place their answered prayer. Many people do not have the strength or fortitude to hold in place their answered prayer. We want to learn how to embody the spiritual insight and sagacity so that it doesn't dissipate day after day or experience after experience. We want to develop a system or a way of life where we are able to hold our answered prayer, where we are able to sustain our answered prayer, so that we become available to receive insight and inspiration on a regular basis. And then the arc or the pinnacle of your unfolding will be forever. As you are always unfolding, as we are always growing, as we are always expanding and always becoming more ourselves. And this is the source of our internal spring of joy, fulfillment, love, and happiness. This stage is where we enter into a new realm of thought, a new realm of being, a new realm of consciousness. If you are not thinking for yourself, then something or someone else is thinking for you. And that which controls the air controls the people. So throughout this process of unfoldment, we really want to open things up so we can begin to think for ourselves, control our own air, and really capture divine inspiration from the divine presence, so that the world and all of its lies, so that the world and all of its doubt, fear, and thoughts of scarcity, lack, and limitation no longer affect us, and we become impervious to it, to the point where we live on a whole different frequency and a whole different vibration, and have the capacity to hold that vibration, the capacity to hold that answered prayer, the capacity to hold that frequency throughout the course of our lives, whether things are going our way or not. So the first stage, the victim consciousness, something is happening to me. The second stage, the manifestor consciousness, something is happening by me. So the first stage, something is happening to me, and we graduate from that stage into the manifestor stage, where something is happening by me. This is directly connected to a law in the universe, which we can use and which we have access to. And this law is called mind in action. This law is called mind in action, which means this law takes your thoughts, being mindful that thoughts are units of mental energy. And the law takes these thoughts and transmutes them into perception. And then this perception becomes transmuted into our feelings, our speech, transmuted into our behavior patterns, and transmuted ultimately into our experience. So we are all living our life experience based off of our perception. So what we learn in stage 2 is how to use this law for our benefit. We learn that there are no chance happenings and that law governs all events. Many times we experience a perception or a belief of something that really has never happened. And this is but another form of scarcity, which is again an illusory mental concept that we have a tendency to live in and even experience, a tendency to go through an experience of something which has never even happened, even though it is not real. In the Manifestor Consciousness, we begin to learn the creative use of visualization. We begin to learn the power of creative visualization, which is a beginning step in our spiritual process of growth, development, and unfoldment. This is stage 2 consciousness, or mind power, where you do not describe what you see, but you see what you describe. This is stage 2 consciousness, or mind power. where you do not describe what you see, but you see what you describe. So all of your inner conversations, your complaints, inner perceptions, inner visualizations begin to take shape through this law of mind in action, and then becomes your experience. All of your inner conversations, your complaints, inner perceptions, inner visualizations begin to take shape through this law of mind in action, and then becomes your reality or your experience. In the Manifestor Consciousness stage, we deliberately visualize. We deliberately evoke the law of manifestation, and we deliberately evoke the law of mind in action, and deliberately surrender to the oneness and surety of the omnipotence of our Creator, so that our foundation becomes one of being whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. So that the dimensions of our conversation become more deliberate. The dimensions of our conversations become more deliberate. Thus, our conversation becomes one of how we are duly supported by the universe. Thus, our conversation becomes one of how everything is working together for our greater good and in our best interests. Thus, our conversation becomes one of how we have more than enough, how we're always celebrating private victories and public victories, because we realize that we have been given permission to become a co-creator with the universe to help shape and mold our lives, our relationships, and ultimately our experiences. With the power of visualization, we actually begin to see the life that we want to live. We actually begin to see our minds and our bodies free from defect, free from sickness, free from virus, free from plagues and jealousy and anger and all of the things that harm our physical bodies, our emotional bodies, our mental bodies, and ultimately our spiritual bodies. For where the mind goes, the body follows. So with the power of visualization, we begin to see all of our needs met. We lack nothing. We begin to see that there's peace, love, and harmony all around us. We begin to do this deliberately, regularly, and consistently. So let us take a breath and let us take a moment to connect with our breath, breathing in through our nose and holding our breath and releasing all that does not serve us through our mouths. Breathing in through our nose and releasing through our mouth all that no longer serves us. And we want to take this moment to see ourselves whole, to see ourselves free of blemish, to see ourselves free of pain, free of suffering, free of prejudice, free of racism, free of violence. We want to take this opportunity to envision our perfect life. And let's go a little bit deeper. And before envisioning our perfect life without, what does our perfect life look like within? What does our perfect life look like within? What does it look like to have a healthy heart? What does it look like to have healthy lungs? What does it look like to have a healthy mind? What does it look like to be healthy? Let's visualize that for a moment. Let's take a moment and see ourselves in that space. And let's do this deliberately and consistently. Let us see that regardless of what may plague you, regardless of what the world has told you, you must see yourself whole for yourself. This is self-work, my friends. And as we begin to visualize our perfect state of being for ourselves, what would we like our world to look like? Let's take a moment and visualize what we would like our world to look like. And we do not describe what we see, but we see what we describe. Let us see the picture and let us make the mental picture clear. Let us take our camera of the mind and high tune the focus. Let us remove all thoughts of doubt, lack, limitation, and let us only see abundance. Let us only see perfect health, perfect mental health, perfect physical health, perfect emotional health, perfect spiritual health. Let us realize that we are not in the world, but the world is in you. Let us realize that we are not in the world, but the world is in you. What will you do with the world? What will you do with your life? What will you do with your community? What will you do with yourself? Before change can become possible, it must become visualized. And before we impose on others the task of change, before we have imposed it upon ourselves, let's take a moment and not look at what change looks like for others, but let's take a moment to see what change looks like for ourselves. As the old adage goes, you must become the change you want to see in the world. You must become the change you wish to see in the world. What does that change look like? For some of us, we've been experiencing pain for so long, we have forgot what joy looks like. We've been experiencing sorrow for so long, we forgot what happiness looks like. Let's call joy into our experience and our awareness right now. Let's call happiness into our experience and into our awareness right now. Let us call peace into our awareness. Let us call strength into our awareness. Let us call power into our awareness. Let us make our guardian angels welcome into our experience. And let us quieten our internal dialogue so we can hear ourselves think. Let us quieten our internal dialogue so we can begin to hear ourselves think. For if you are not thinking for yourself, something or someone is surely thinking for you. And that which controls the air controls the people. And as we continue to connect with our breath, there is no rush to leave this space. This is a safe space, and it is my space. It is your space. This is our space. For we are not in this space. This space is within us. So let's take a moment to reflect on our visualization, which is the first step to our manifestor consciousness, to developing the life that you know you deserve, but the life that you may feel is out of reach. Let us take this moment to reflect. Breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth, and releasing all toxicity, all fear, all thoughts of doubt, lack, limitation, and scarcity. Breathing in only those things which serve you. My name is Halim Ali, and I am here on behalf of From the Heart Foundation. This has been our Tuesday night mindfulness session, part 2 in a 4-part series. We look forward to you joining us next week. And for now, we bid you peace, nothing missing, nothing broken.